At 6 in the morning on a freezing Tuesday, I sat in front of my glowing laptop with a cold cup of coffee, watching the board members gather for our quarterly company call. I knew that in less than 10 minutes, a single move from my keyboard would destroy our firm's $14 million cornerstone account. The executives thought I was completely powerless, but they were about to learn what happens when you mistake quiet dedication for total submission. For over 5 full years, I was the invisible force keeping our largest corporate client completely satisfied through endless operational fires and brutal deadlines. While other managers chased flashy promotions and presented colorful slide decks, I worked late hours making sure every single system functioned without a single glitch. The founder of the firm once publicly called me the backbone of the organization, and I took genuine pride in being the dependable shield behind the scenes. Everything changed when Blake arrived with an expensive designer suit, zero operational experience, and an ego that required its own zip code. His father was an influential friend of our founder, which earned him a vice president title before he even understood our basic workflows. On his second day, he condescendingly informed me that I was running outdated processes, making it immediately clear that my years of hard work meant absolutely nothing to his shiny vision. Within a month, Blake began systematically erasing my presence by excluding me from critical strategy meetings and rerouting client communication through his inexperienced assistants. He posted public announcements claiming my methods were holding back the firm, ignoring the fact that my team was maintaining our highest profit margin. I kept my head down and documented every foolish decision he made, waiting patiently while he constructed his own corporate trap with reckless enthusiasm. The core issue Blake completely overlooked was a crucial contract clause that had been established back during the operational chaos of 2020. Our primary client had grown so dependent on my direct management that they demanded a binding legal guarantee regarding leadership continuity. Section 6.4b stated clearly that if I voluntarily resigned from my position, the client possessed the immediate right to terminate the agreement without paying a single dime in penalties. When I casually brought up this continuity term during an executive briefing, Blake laughed off my warning as an irrelevant historical relic that legal could easily bypass. He was obsessed with sending our entire workflow offshore to cut costs, completely unaware that the client contract explicitly required my personal oversight on every major escalation. I did not argue with his arrogance, but instead placed a clean time-stamped copy of the contract directly into the secure company repository. The boiling point arrived during our monthly company presentation in front of over 100 employees, investors, and executive board members. I was scheduled to deliver my regular update on client health, but just 2 sentences into my presentation, Blake interrupted me with a wide artificial grin. He boldly announced to the entire company that my department was being transitioned overseas, and my role was officially being phased out effective immediately. Before I could offer a single word of clarification, Blake used his administrative privileges to remotely mute my microphone and disable my presenter permissions on screen. I was left staring at a frozen image of myself while he smirked and continued presenting my data as his own personal achievement. Every corporate instinct told me to react, but I stayed perfectly composed, stared straight into the lens, and quietly shut my laptop mid-presentation. What Blake failed to notice during his public display of dominance was the senior general counsel sitting quietly in the corner of the video call grid. The lead attorney leaned forward, narrowed his eyes, and immediately began writing notes as soon as my square went dark on the screen. The lawyer knew that muting a named key executive on a recorded call created massive legal liability, but Blake was far too intoxicated by his own microphone to notice. That evening, I sat in my quiet apartment reviewing the contract file one final time to verify every exact term and signature date. Paragraph 2 of Section 6.4b confirmed that my voluntary resignation triggered an immediate option for contract cancellation by the client. I downloaded the entire legal file, emailed verified PDF copies to my private drive, and set up my precise departure schedule for the very next morning without revealing my intentions to anyone. The human resources representative called me early the next afternoon, attempting to smooth over the public humiliation with delicate corporate phrases and empty promises of future advisory roles. I sat silently through her entire speech, sipping my coffee without offering a single word of comfort or defense to make her uncomfortable position easier. When she finished asking how we should frame my transition to the rest of the staff, I simply stood up and walked away. I returned to my desk, packed my personal items into a small box, and thoroughly erased my personal browser history from the company computer terminal. I then configured a new custom background for my digital video profile, featuring bold white capital letters against a stark black background stating my resignation effective at 9 in the morning sharp. Everything was in place, and the fuse was lit while management remained blissfully oblivious to the impending disaster. At 9 in the morning during the next company video call, Blake began speaking bright and early about the cost savings of his new offshore initiative. At exactly 9 sharp, I turned my video camera on without saying a single word, holding my physical company identification badge in one hand and my signed resignation letter in the other. Behind me, my custom profile background displayed the bold text confirming my resignation was legally active as of that precise minute. A heavy wave of awkward silence swept across the meeting as board members gasped and the general counsel buried his face in his hands on camera. Blake tried to stammer through his presentation deck, but his voice cracked as he realized every executive was staring directly at my resignation letter. I maintained total eye contact with the camera for 30 full seconds before clicking the exit button, leaving the entire leadership team trapped in the wreckage of their own arrogance. Exactly 21 hours later, the primary client sent an official legal termination letter citing Section 6.4b and immediately exiting their $14 million agreement. Internal communication channels completely exploded with panic as employees realized the company had just lost its largest source of reliable operational revenue. Blake attempted to issue a company-wide message about embracing corporate change, but legal stepped in and publicly confirmed his actions caused the catastrophic loss. 3 days later, a harsh internal email from our founder leaked to the entire company, detailing how Blake had destroyed years of trust for the sake of his fragile vanity. The board stripped Blake of all operational power, suspended his position indefinitely, and quietly removed his name from every official leadership directory. Our corporate valuation plummeted by double digits, potential investors backed out of pending deals, and several senior engineers immediately submitted their own resignation letters in solidarity. Meanwhile, I accepted a lucrative principal consulting role with a competing firm that explicitly valued hands-on expertise and transparent operational leadership over corporate titles. On my first morning at the new firm, a grand arrangement of dark red roses arrived at my desk with an unsigned note asking if I would ever consider returning on my own terms. I placed the note inside my desk drawer alongside a copy of Clause 6.4b, smiling at how far silence can carry. Looking back on that entire ordeal, I realized that true competence never needs to make unnecessary noise or fight for artificial validation in a toxic room. When you build something with genuine integrity and expertise, your value becomes self-evident the moment you step away and let the foundation crumble on its own. Arrogance may win the microphone for a brief moment, but quiet preparation and undeniable leverage will always claim the final victory when the real dust settles.